Well, thank you, Ned and Leroy, for inviting me here tonight. And again, my name is Tom Frazier. I'm a legislative liaison with the Michigan Townships Association. I've been there about 18 years now and do legislative work. And I also happen to be a resident of Meridian Township, so it's nice to be here tonight. Kind of a smaller group. It'd probably be more conducive to actually sit down with you and be informal, but I guess I need to be up here in order to advance the slides. But kind of what I wanted to do tonight is, just as an outline, tell you a little bit about the Green Communities Network, tell you quite a bit about the Green Communities Challenge and that process, talk a little bit about some legislation, and some state land preservation efforts that are ongoing, and then talk a little bit about Meridian Township's challenge application last year and some additional things that you might consider to get from the silver level to the gold level. And then finally, just some highlights of what some other communities are doing around the state in their sustainability efforts. So what is the Green Communities Network? It's really a partnership of state associations, which includes the Michigan Townships Association, Michigan Municipal League, and the Michigan Association of Counties, and some state agencies. Originally, those state agencies were the Department of Environmental Quality, which is now under a new name, EAGLE, for Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. That change just went into effect last week. It also included Michigan Energy Office, as well as the Economic Development Office. And since it was originally begun, we've added a couple of more state agencies to the group, the Department of Transportation, as well as Health and Human Services. We're kind of governed, if you will, by a steering committee of 13 to 15 people. And again, that steering committee is primarily made up of people from the groups that I mentioned, as well as local officials from around the state that have an interest in sustainability and green communities. Our mission, just picking some things out from the mission, is peer learning, networking, information sharing, and promoting innovative solutions. Switching to specifically to the Green Community Challenge, it was formed in 2009, primarily around energy efficiency projects, and this really got started during the recession time frame and under the Obama administration, where there were stimulus funds available for a lot of energy projects, and the Green Communities Challenge got started during that time frame. It was revised in 2012, and at that point we started the awards program, which I'll get into a little bit more later, and then further revised in 2016 with funding from the C.S. Mott Foundation. The challenge is a rating system that's open to all local governments in Michigan, counties, townships, cities, villages, and you can earn a certificate of gold, silver, or a bronze rating. And it's just simply an online checklist that a community goes through as far as various action items that are taking place within their community and reporting metrics that you might be doing in your community. This is just a shot of the interface showing the challenge form and the internet access. The specific levels, in each level there are 12 action items that are available. 12 in the bronze, 12 in the silver, and 12 in the gold. And there are also 22 reporting metrics, and these are in 3 different areas: energy, resource management, and transportation. The scoring in order to receive a certificate at the various levels: in the bronze level, a community must complete 6 of 12 action items. For the silver level, 6 of 12 of the bronze, as well as 6 of 12 of the silver, and 10 of the 22 reporting metrics. And then for the gold, you see it's again 6 of 12 for all 3 categories, as well as 15 of the 22 reporting metrics. And then also participate in the Michigan Green Communities Steering Committee, or serve on a Green Communities resource team, or complete a case study. So why take the challenge? Again, some of the benefits of doing this is to have a checklist of your sustainability progress. It creates a roadmap for sustainability projects. Again, you learn and compete with peers from other communities. And again, there are recognitions. Not only are the certificates made available to a community for achieving each level, but Michigan Green Communities also will provide a press release. We do case studies. We do an annual conference, which I'll talk a little bit about more later. And sometimes we do have prizes available for attendees, as far as cash prizes to go for things to promote sustainability in your community. Just some statistics from last year's challenge. There were 30 participants, and while that may not seem like a lot statewide, it's actually the most that we've had since the program was revised in 2016. 21 of those participants were returning communities. We had 9 new communities participate. And as far as the certification level, we had 12 bronze, 7 silver, and 7 gold certificates, and 1 honorable mention. Interestingly, we had over 470 actions reported by those 30 participants, and over 290 metrics that were tracked and reported during the challenge. This just gives you kind of a visual indication of participation. We had a 67% increase in the 3-year period from 2016 to last year, 51% increase in the reporting of metrics, and a 36% increase again in participation. And then the graph here just breaks down the challenge participation by new and returning, and whether it was a township, city, village, or county that participated in the challenge. This is another way of looking at the challenge and graphics of participation over the last 3 years. You can see that the action items that were reported has gone up substantially since 2016, and also the metrics have gone up significantly as well. This graph just shows, again, the participants over the last 3 years and the user accounts. And what the user accounts are simply people that have registered online with the challenge, but as you can see, we've had 67 of those, but only 30 of them actually completed it. So at least there's some additional interest out there, and hopefully we can get those communities that have shown some interest in the past to actually complete the challenge going forward. This is another chart that shows some of the actions that were added by category. And some of the ones I'll highlight are the larger ones, like the sustainability and climate planning. We had 12 actions on that this last time. The natural features planning, 14, renewable energy of 14, and non-motorized planning of 13, and you can see the rest of them there as well. Again, it's simple to take the challenge. Simply register online and complete the checklist. This year, the deadline is going to be later because our conference is later in the year. And so you have until the end of August to complete that this year. And that's it. So it's relatively simple, and I know Leroy has done that in the past, and we hope that Meridian will again going forward. I want to switch gears here just a little bit before I talk more about specifically Meridian Township to talk a little about some legislation. And these are 4 bills that have been introduced in the House and Senate and regarding solar. And what they do in essence is they exempt from taxation the personal property tax on solar systems that are small in nature. You can see the criteria under when the tax exemption would apply. It would be if it was generating less or not more than 150 kilowatts. It would be used to offset personal, commercial, or industrial usage. And that is specific to House Bill 4465, which deals with commercial and industrial, whereas House Bill 4069 deals with residential. And it would have a true cash value of less than $80,000. And essentially what it would do for residential properties is treat it like any other maintenance type activities that would not be taxed until the home is sold. So you could put a solar system on your home under this legislation. The homeowner would not receive an additional tax on that, but when the home is sold, that's when the community would receive additional revenue from that addition, if you will. Both the House bills just passed out of committee last week, and the Senate bills have not been taken up yet, but they should be shortly. And I was talking to Leroy right before the meeting, and we were talking about this a little bit. This legislation was actually passed late last year by both the House and Senate and was vetoed by the governor. And the primary reason I think he vetoed it is that he felt that it was usurping local control to some extent. I think with the current governor, once it gets to her desk, we will see that signed into law. So hopefully that will be coming soon. Land preservation, and this is Public Act 116, which is ag lands that are set aside for preservation to remain in ag production and not be developed. There is currently an effort underway by the Governor Whitmer's administration, as well as the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, to allow commercial solar development on PA 116 lands. In fact, I've been involved in a work group the last couple of weeks that has met on this issue. And kind of the idea is that because it is not currently allowed, because it essentially takes the ag land out of production while the solar development is there, it would not qualify under PA 116. But what we're trying to do through this work group is essentially allow it to qualify. The land would remain in PA 116, but that PA 116 would kind of be deferred until the end of the solar development's useful life. So whatever that is, 20 to 30 years, depending on the project. The PA 116 deferment would be deferred until the end of that, and then the land, there would be a requirement for bonding that the developer would have to remove the solar array and remove anything associated with that, and then the land would go back into agricultural use. So I think we're very close on getting to an agreement on this. This is not legislation yet. What the attempt here is to do this administratively, to allow MDARD, or Department of Ag and Rural Development, to implement this without any legislative changes. And then the long-term approach is to actually change state statute to put this into law. But again, I think this is an encouraging development because there is a lot of interest around the state in commercial solar development. In fact, there's a project that's being proposed fairly close by in Shiawassee County, rather large development. It's 1,500 acres that would come under the solar development. And so this would help enable that. And then finally, on the legislative front, there has been an ag preservation fund through the state of Michigan. I believe the last time they gave money out to local units of government to purchase development rights was 2009, because there hasn't been funding since that time to do that. But the governor has proposed, there is sources for that revenue now, as you can see under the funding sources I list here. And I do have a typo, it's PA 261 of 2000, not of 200. It doesn't go quite back that far. But there is funding available, and the governor has proposed spending $2 million in the next fiscal year to get these grants out to local communities to be able to do this. And the Senate subcommittee just passed it last week at the $2 million level, and the House subcommittee, Appropriations Subcommittee, passed it yesterday at a slightly lower level at $1.9 million. But I think, I think there's general agreement for this to move forward, and it would, take effect in the next fiscal year starting October 1st. But in order to be able to utilize that, a local unit of government would have to have adopted a development rights ordinance as part of your zoning ordinance or zoning act. And then there would be applications for these funds. There's a 7-member board that's been in existence for several years already. They just haven't been able to have the funding to do this in a while. And they would make the decisions as far as which communities receive those grants. Now switching back to Meridian Township specifically, Meridian did apply for the challenge last year. They got the silver certificate. Just gives you a little bit of history. They received 10 of 12 bronze, 9 of 12 silver, 4 of 12 gold. Where they missed out there as far as getting to the gold level is you would need a minimum of 6 of 12 gold. And there are just, I believe, 1 and maybe 2, I might be incorrect on this number, it's either 13 or 14 of 22 metrics that were done by the township. So Meridian has participated in the challenge since 2012. One of the highlights that was recognized by the people judging or reviewing these applications was your Green Space Protection Plan. And again, to reach the next level at the gold level would need to complete 2 additional gold level actions in either 1 or 2 of the metrics. And I just listed some of the things under the gold category that maybe Meridian Township could look at for reaching that gold. And since last year, you may already be working on some of these. I'm not sure, but these are just some of the categories that are possible to implement a PACE program in the township, which is for commercial and industrial properties. Essentially, it allows a commercial property to do clean energy type infrastructure and have that put on their assessment or their tax bill over up to, I think, 25 years in length. So they don't have to do all the upfront costs. They're essentially, the local community is providing that, and then they get that back through the tax assessment. Track local energy and water use for all local government buildings. Adopt a community forestry plan or urban tree canopy goal. Implement a community-wide composting program. And some other ones here is replace traffic light, street lighting with LEDs. Adopt an anti-idling policy for your community fleet, township fleet of vehicles, or community-wide. Adopt a plan or policy for energy efficiency or renewable energy in low-income housing. And achieve green building certification for a government building. Some of the metrics under the energy category is total community-wide energy consumption, total annual local government renewable energy purchased, most recent greenhouse gas emissions inventory. Under resource management, some ideas, materials composted community-wide, percent impervious surface community-wide, and your tree canopy community-wide. Under the transportation category, tracking the number of hybrid electric or electric vehicles in your township fleet, annual fuel savings through utilizing green fleets, and the percent of sustainable commutes by mode type. And I know, Ned, you biked here tonight, so you could be included in that category. So it's, tracking people that walk to work, who bike to work, who use public transportation.
I can witness the fact that I see Leroy commuting to work, on a fairly regular basis when he's riding this way and I'm riding that way.
And one of the things that was suggested by the coordinator of Green Communities when I was talking to her about doing this presentation tonight is she mentioned green purchasing. And this is obviously to purchase things for the township that has less of an environmental impact. And there is going to be Michigan Green Communities webinar coming up on June 17th, so some of you might want to get that on your calendar. It's going to be in conjunction with the Ecology Center and the City of Ann Arbor. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of details on this yet, other than that's the date. But this was just put together, just finalized, I think, within the last week or so. But that will be on green purchasing and might be informative. This is obviously just a picture from last year of presenting the silver certificate to both John and Leroy at our conference. Highlights of other communities. Ann Arbor has long had a PACE program. They're kind of known statewide for what they've done in this. You know, again, it's a consideration. Traverse City, as many of you may know, has a goal of 100% renewable energy by 2040, and their interim goal is 40% by 2025. Another interesting one is Huntington Woods, who recently updated their zoning ordinance to incorporate solar energy systems for residential zones. And then lastly, again, I don't know a lot about this particular one, but the Board of Water and Light, the City of East Lansing, and City of Lansing, along with the Michigan Energy Office, are working on community solar installations. And I'm sure many of you have probably seen, for example, the one on Bircham Road in East Lansing. And then there's a large one out in Delta Township where essentially where the newer GM plant is, where I-96 and I-69 meet there. And that's very large. And so I think they are working on some additional ones for the area. And so that's pretty exciting as well. Lastly, just again, the Michigan Green Communities meeting this year, the awards and the annual event, we will actually be in conjunction with the Michigan Sustainability Conference that is being put on by the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, November 20th and 21st, and it will be in Lansing. It's at the Lansing Center, so it is local. And with that, I guess if there are any questions or any dialogue you want to have, we can do that if there's time. And if you want to contact me afterwards, here's my contact information at MTA. So with that, I guess I thank you for your attention, and I don't know if there's any questions or dialogue at this point, but
Tom, are you going to hang around for the other part of the meeting?
I'm hoping to, yeah, at least for part of it. Yep.
Because I have questions on recycling. But
Okay.
I'll wait till
All right.
you're available.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Sure. Thanks.
Questions for Tom?
Do you have a sense of what the probability of that solar legislation, property tax exemption passing in the next month or two, or being signed in the next month or two might be?
Yeah, I always hesitate to put a deadline on it because, you know, sometimes when you think things are moving fairly quickly, they get stalled a little bit, and vice versa. When things seem to be going kind of slow, sometimes they have a tendency to really speed up. But I think there is strong general bipartisan support for the legislation. And again, the House bills have already made it out of committee. So I would anticipate the chances of it going all the way through the process and being signed into law within I'm going to say the next 2 to 3 months, is probably pretty high. And hopefully I'm not proven to be wrong on that. But again, although we do have a very different legislature this time, a lot of new members, it did pass both the House and Senate late last year. And I think we do have a governor who will be very supportive of this time around. So I'm pretty optimistic. So yeah. Yeah.
It's John over here, but on the energy front, can you comment on I assume that most utilities are, as people build more and more solar panels and wind turbines, wind generation and so forth, you've always got the issue of either storage or compensation as, clouds pass over and or the wind picks up or slows down. And I was just wondering, is storage part of for example, up in Ludington, they have this, water, pumping water uphill,
Right.
storage is storage considered to be part of the categories of green investment that, that are being included in these considerations?
Yeah, I think it is. And I don't know a lot about this, but my understanding is that the technology for like battery storage and the ability to store electricity or energy generated from solar or wind, that the technology is getting a lot better in that regard. So I think we are going to see more development in that area as far as being able to store renewable energy, because like you said, right now there is that concern that with the lack of sun, as we can see by looking outdoors, it's only available at certain periods of time, and wind is the same way. Obviously the wind needs to be blowing to generate electricity, but I think there are a lot of new developments in the area of storage that will enhance those two things going forward, and allowing utility companies and municipal companies to be able to better utilize renewables.
But for example, for residential use, I mean, I know, for example, people up north who are actually sort of off the grid, they'll have battery banks in their own basements.
Yeah.
That's a whole different investment, but would that be covered under things like tax incentives?
At this point, I don't believe so. That may be something that the legislature might look at down the road, but the solar legislation that I spoke about earlier, that's specific to, the panels and the equipment that goes along with the panels. I don't believe it does include the actual storage capacity.
So that's all pretty much grid linked. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to understand that.
Yep.
Other questions? Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you.